Hello everybody, this is Amir Alwani from PotentNews.com, and you are about to witness me finally making another video. Here we go. It's inspired by this technology here that you see, which is making everything look pretty weird.
Hello everybody, this is Amir Alwani from PotentNews.com, and I'm finally making another video. I was supposed to put out another one pertaining to Gematria. I had to put back that Gematria video on the back burner when I noticed Gematria was very similar to tarot. So when I learned tarot, I found that would help me explain Gematria a bit. So that's for another video. I will be touching on some Gematria tidbits later. And at that point, I guess I'll give the primer of the basics of what Gematria is. But it's basically a branch of numerology, and it's basically studying number patterns. And so this thing right here that you see is the 24-hour Global Consciousness Project DOT, which I've been interested in for a very long time now. I'm using like a add-on for Firefox to have it right at the top here, but if you go to the page, you'll see the rest of the page. If you want, you can pause the video and look at these definitions, this legend here. But essentially, I just keep my eye on this a lot because I do notice that when this is on red, things are a little more tense, as it sort of indicates in that legend. And when they're green, it's like, things are good to go. When it's on the blue, that is sort of like everyone's on the same page, but they're not. There's less tension, so they're sort of understanding each other. So I kind of just like to have this open for all the time, just to feel things out and have a thing to gauge things with. Now, this is the Global Consciousness Project. It's basically studying random numbers that are generated from computers all over the world and trying to correlate the when they have numbers become less random, to correlate that with major world events. And that's what they do see happening. So this kind of thing is going to be what I will talk about later on, maybe for a tiny bit here and there in this video. I'll make another video eventually. I've made a lot of notes for a future video on focusing specifically on Gematria. But anyway, this particular video is inspired by this psychedelic camera app. Okay, so here you find the all-seeing eye right there, and that's not an accident. So very few things, if anything, in life are accidents, and everything's connected. So when you see something like this, if you have seen the work of people such as Jan Irvin, who I interviewed back in 2014, or other people such as Steve Outtrim, who has done a lot of good work exposing Burning Man, which is a festival that, he's mentioned that all the major universities study this festival. And there's a lot of things to be said about it. It's not really just a festival. There's a lot of weird stuff that goes on there. But, it's suffice it to say, it's basically about hedonism and about, doing whatever you want. And they got like an orgy dome there, and so on and so forth. And so this psychedelic camera app has this all-seeing eye thing right here. So maybe that might make people think that, oh, there's some overlap between the psychedelics and the tech world. There's a lot of history to look into that. If anyone's familiar with a lot of the stuff I've put on my website in the past few years, you already know about that. But I think from the sense that I get from talking to people, random people online, about where all this, augmented reality stuff is headed, and quite how intoxicating it will be for people. I generally see that people are underestimating, the direction that it's headed. Now here you see this app being applied to just a still photo, but when it's in motion, it's even more interesting. Now, so what is what is a film that is featuring this kind of thing? Well, creative control. And so I'll just show you a bit of this. I don't know if I'll show all of it. We'll see. Here's the trailer for that movie. But before I do that, I'm just going to say Gavin McInnes is in that movie. You have 9/11 on the clock at around 2 minutes into the movie. I don't know if that's in the trailer. You have, well, that's Gematria, so we'll get into that later maybe. You have, it illustrates our obsession with smartphones, social media, virtual reality, pharmaceuticals, etc. Most of the film is in black and white, which gives it a film noir feel, possibly to soften the transhumanist blow. And interestingly, the only color that appears is on the avatar of the girl that the main character is obsessed with, as he views his virtual reality reconstruction of her face, body, and voice. So if any of you have ever read a book called The Giver, I think it was called The Giver, it was also similarly, the whole book was in the setting of the book, the main character was viewing everything in black and white, like they didn't even know what color was. But eventually, as the person woke up more and more, the character, he ended up actually either seeing color or coming to a location in which color existed. So that's what I am reminded of when I see this crazy video here, this movie. Of course, he also says, or one of the characters at 24 minutes 50 seconds says, it's going to be weird when we all have chips in our brain. And the other guy says, no, it won't seem weird then. It'll seem inevitable. People who don't do it will be the weird ones. It'll be like the Amish, and we'll be all like, I almost envy their simplicity. So again, before I show the trailer of this movie, which features augmented reality, which is what we're talking about here, I'm just going to say that it stars Gavin McInnes, or one of the stars is Gavin McInnes, and he did co-found Vice, which I don't like at all. Vice has basically tried to whitewash some of the areas of study that I've been interested in the past. They've basically, talked crap about orgonite or orgone pyramids and other things of that nature. And for full disclosure, I will say that my brother has had a number of his comics published at Vice. The website has published his comics. Now, I don't have the same views as my brother. I love him, but I just have to point this out, get that out of the way, because as I said, Vice has done that type of censorship stuff towards areas that I'm interested in, but also they're associated with satanic group called the Order of Nine Angles. Okay, and you have, they also promoted the official narrative of the Paris attacks that happened in 2015, which ended up being the pretext for clamping down on any protests surrounding the 2015 United Nations Climate Conference in Paris. Now, of course, only people who had views such as that carbon dioxide is not so bad, were the ones who were clamped down on. There was a number of people who were put on house arrest for the duration of that that conference. Some people who lived there, and a lot of other people, a much larger number of other people ended up actually protesting pretty much for what the powers that be want them to protest for, which is trying to reduce carbon emissions, sustainability, all that stuff. And all that comes from things such as the Club of Rome, which basically they say stuff like, the people who created that club, they wrote a book, and in that book they wrote that the common enemy of humanity is man. In searching for a new enemy to unite us, we came up with the idea that the threat of global warming would fit the bill. The real enemy then is humanity itself. We believe humanity requires a common motivation, namely a common adversary, in order to realize world government. It does not matter if this common enemy is a real one or one invented for the purpose. So that's the kind of stuff they're saying. I don't want to get too much into this. Pause it and read this if you want. Suffice it to say, this club included our Prime Minister's father, Pierre Elliott Trudeau, as well as these other prolific, or maybe that's not the right word, but well-known figures such as Mikhail Gorbachev, Princess Beatrix of the Netherlands, Rianne Eisler, who ended up, I'm not even going to go. I've already gone on too many tangents. Okay, so basically what I'm trying to say is Pierre Elliott Trudeau, our Prime Minister's father, was in this club, which is basically already laying out the agenda pertaining to this climate change stuff that everyone's having such a fervor about. And so Justin Trudeau was interviewed by Vice, right? And we'll come back to some of the symbolism that was in that interview in a moment after, or sometime in this video. But first, let's do what we were gonna do, which is check out this trailer for Creative Control.
Morning, David.
Hi, Jamie.
It's Becky.
Becky. I had a vision that we could enhance real life with a magical layer in front of it. So this is our approach. We give a pear to a genius.
Oh.
We see what comes back.
Oh, my bad. My bad. I clicked an add-on that I thought would work with this, but it only works with YouTube, to try to make all the surrounding stuff here black. Anyway, let's rewind it.
We could enhance.
Let's bring that over there.
Morning, David.
Hi, Jamie.
It's Becky.
Becky. I had a vision that we could enhance real life with a magical layer in front of it. So this is our approach. We give a pear to a genius. We see what comes back. We might have a new art form on our hands. What's going on with that model?
Holy, you live in a movie.
I know. I do live in a movie. And it's great.
So how was your day at work?
Phalanx put me back in the pilot's chair.
How are we supposed to know that he's a pilot?
He's wearing a pilot's outfit and he's in a cockpit. It was really good.
Magic is what Augmented is.
Welcome to...
And so there you go. That black cube symbolism is there. We'll come back to what that is. That came up a number of times. And of course, when you have the cube viewed in this way, it appears as a hexagon. And we'll touch upon that as well later. This is very relevant.
David.
Hi, babe.
Hi, sweetie.
Do you have a crush on Sophie?
Augmented reality.
It's not what you think.
It'd be weird when we all have chips in our brain.
It won't seem weird then. It'll seem inevitable.
What is this? Give me the password.
Nope. Who is that guy in the hall?
You have to promise not to get mad.
Oh, God.
I'm loving him. He's loving you. He's loving me because we're all one.
Are you high right now? I love you.
You don't even know me.
What's going on, guys? He's cheating on you with this model of love. Oh.
Anyway, I think you get the picture. I'm not going to show this whole thing here, but I mean there could be other stuff, but we don't have time. And so this black cube that was in this that was very prominently featured in this trailer is something I'm gonna that the other people have already shed light on. You know, if you go to my website and you click you look for a video called Saturn, or you look for the Saturn tag or anything like that, you'll see some of what I'm about to show you. So which is namely stuff like this and this. So I'm just gonna sort of leave it at that. I'm not gonna go too deep into a lot of this, but it's food for thought. But basically what you find is a lot of Hollywood movies feature the black cube in relation to artificial intelligence. So any movie about transhumanism or artificial intelligence will have a lot of this kind of stuff. So this black cube is basically a symbol of Saturn. And you know, one thing I'll say too about the Kaaba in Mecca, it wasn't really apparent to me how important this was to the Islamic people until I read that they actually are it's customary for them to bury their dead facing this cube. So it's not just that they have to pray facing it. They have to, even after you're dead, you still have to sort of pay attention to this cube. And of course, you know, time and attention are the spiritual currencies. Say spending time, paying attention, and so you know, the other thing is to tie this back to Justin Trudeau, right? Is the Vice interview with Justin Trudeau had a black cube chairs. It featured black cube chairs as well as a black square stage as well as a black square coffee table. So they really sort of overdid it with this black cube stuff for that. And let's just have a look at a screenshot of that. So there you go. Okay, so hold on, let me just make it bigger so you can see there's a stage. It's like pretty much a black square, maybe not a perfect square, but you know, the chairs are very cube-like and everything is cube-like, and you know, a lot of the times it's easy to throw this stuff away and not consider this. But since I had, you know, seen this in so many places, one of the places that I saw it was in a Meshuggah music video. Now Meshuggah is a metal band that I saw live, and you know, they do promote psychedelics in their music as well. I mean, let me pull up Meshuggah here. Meshuggah in this brain software, and so they also have the Chaosphere logo, which was the logo of the secret society Illuminus of Thanateros. It happens to be the name of one of their best albums. They named that album Chaosphere, and there's a three-dimensional representation of that Chaosphere there, and that does relate to chaos magic, etc. So there is a lot of, and chaos magic relates to punk rock, which we'll also check out later in another trailer for another movie. But you know, so in one of Meshuggah's music videos, they actually have the black cube. So let's take a look at that. Alright, so here's Meshuggah. And I'm just going to pause it right there, because what also is a symbol of Saturn is the Eye of Sauron, which David Icke points out in the Saturn video he made there. And so that kind of reminds me almost of the way this guy's eyes look right here. And there he's doing sort of the, you know, highly reminiscent of the as above, so below, Baphomet symbol. And so, yeah, pretty creepy stuff. It's and it's interesting that, you know, you find this cube and they also promote the psychedelics. So, and I'm not giving a black and white view of the psychedelics. You know, I might go into more of what I think about the nuances of that area, but this is the main thing to take away here, which is that the black cube is there. And like I said, Eye of Sauron from the Lord of the Rings is there as well. And one of the bands that Meshuggah influenced, which also, you know, I listened to quite a bit a while back, was Tesseract. And what a Tesseract is a four-dimensional cube. So here you see the fourth dimension will be time, which means that this thing actually rotates in a way that you can't really appreciate by looking at just a flat image of this where time is not a factor. But regardless, the shape would sort of look like this, and that's what a tesseract is, and that's what the band is named after. And so this is a picture of one of the live events that live shows that Tesseract played at. So before we get back into the augmented reality stuff, I just gotta say, Meshuggah is not just any metal band. They are sort of pioneers in the kind of metal that they make. They made the 8-string guitar popular. Of course, nowadays you have bands like Glass Cloud who have like a 9-string guitar and so on. But so, and there's even other connections with one of their guitarists, which we'll get into later in the video, which is really interesting. But, you know, one thing I want to bring up now with respect to them is that, you know, their music is very mathematical. It's not something that you really can understand right away until you actually, you know, like metal as a whole. You know, I agree with a lot of what Dr. Hans Utter has to say about metal. You know, I might have some nuanced views, but what was I gonna say? They are very mathematical in their approach to writing. So it's stuff that you have to sort of memorize, a lot of memorization, and the rhythm isn't really the kind of rhythm you would expect. It has these you know, changes that come at odd times. So because of that, it's interesting that, you know, one of the, I believe it was either the production company or something like that of Creative Control, yeah, I guess that was what it was, they have a logo that appears in an animation I had a lot of these pictures in the brain software already, but a lot of them got deleted actually when I migrated to another computer. I don't know why. Maybe because I didn't have the full version or something like that. Anyway, the point is, this mathematic production company, let me make sure if it's a production company here. Let's check that out. Oh, you gotta pay IMDb to do that, or 30-day free trial. I'm not going to do that, and it doesn't matter. The point is, this logo comes up at the opening credits for the Creative Control movie that we just talked about, and the logo itself basically is a black cube. So there's that. So now also you got the you have a short film, which I'm not going to show all of this, but this was a film that Steve Outtrim pointed out a while back, and it was mind-blowing. Okay, so everything you see in that Creative Control movie is like tenfold on this, and it really drives it home how much there is a similarity between you know, as Outtrim pointed out, the experience of LSD and the visuals that you would see there are basically now, we're coming really close to being able to replicate that in a digital form for like virtual reality and augmented reality. And someone made a short film that Outtrim pointed out, which was I think I read that it took 2 years to make or something, but here it is. I'm just going to show it to you because this is insane.
Fantastic. Great. Nice. Great.
Más tarde, apúrate si quieres una buena calificación.
Voy lo más rápido que puedo.
¿Has pensado en correr? Es saludable y eficiente.
So you see how distracting this is for anybody who might in the future be experiencing anything like this. You already notice how much people are, you know, stuck in their phones everywhere you look. So that's bad enough, but this is going to make it a lot more intoxicating. So let's fast forward to some other part of the video.
¿Qué está pasando?
Buen día, Emilio. ¿Qué puedo hacer por usted?
¿Qué está pasando? Mis puntos están bien.
No se preocupe, sus puntos están seguros conmigo. ¿Le puedo ayudar en algo más, Emilio?
Yo no soy Emilio, yo soy Juliana Restrepo.
Por favor, espere.
Hola, Juliana Restrepo. Me alegra verte. ¿Qué puedo hacer por ti?
Mis puntos están bien. ¿Qué está pasando?
Tranquila, todo está bien. Parece que alguien está intentando vulnerar su cuenta. Por favor, espere mientras reinicio su dispositivo.
Alright, so I think you get the picture. Yeah. So, you know, you could say this is just a short film, like whatever, but you know, you saw the app, the psychedelic camera app, and so on and so forth. Now, just to touch upon the black cube, I mean, we mentioned how much it was found in, you know, the artists that influenced me and so on. And it turns out that, you know, I knew about the black cube when well, by the way, this is the podcast that I did on the Pokemon balance and the health impacts of loneliness. I tied all those together in this video that I put out in July 20th, 2016. But if you go to the top banner here and you zoom into the main banner of the website, you'll see the black cube. So I'm putting this for full disclosure. Again, when I found this particular background and acquired permission from the artist to use it as my banner, what I was thinking about, and I think I had a lot of this, maybe not all of the black cube awareness, but I knew about the black cube at the time, but it wasn't at the forefront of my mind. And what I was thinking about when I saw this was more pixelation, just the aspect of pixelation, and how if we view everything in a low bit rate, you know, sure, like this is one of the things Terence McKenna said, I think, as much as he's a part of the problem, you could say. One accurate thing he said was when you view things or hear things in a low bit rate, it all sounds the same. So if there's enough distortion, for example, on the telephone, everyone will sound sort of distorted and the same. And so what I was thinking of when I chose this particular background was this pixelation would represent transhumanism, and I was already studying transhumanism at the time. Of course, you know, now there's a transhumanist party of Canada, and there's a US transhumanist party, and we might touch upon that later. But my thinking around the time that I chose this art was that transhumanism is not a good thing, even if we do have our feet wet in it a little bit by means of how addicted we are to our phones, etc. But if we keep going down that road, the planet is basically gonna blow up. I don't mean like blow up literally, but it's not like gonna head in a good direction. Like people are already getting, you know, like I said, zombified and so on, and they don't care about the details. They don't want a high bit rate. They don't even want you to call them. They prefer a text, right? You know what I'm talking about. So anyway, I just had to point that out because, you know what they say, signs and symbols rule the world, so it appears that this particular symbol made its way into the artwork of bands that I liked, and a lot of movies which pertain to the subject matters that I was interested in, the science fiction subject matters, and artificial intelligence and so on. Now I also, you know, I don't want to give a black and white view of this stuff because I do accept Bitcoin donations. So there's going to be this video might not put Bitcoin or the blockchain in the best light, but I don't like to be on this. I don't even like to be on PayPal. You know, PayPal is censoring people that look at the type of information that I look at. So, you know, I don't even like to use the regular fiat cash. You know, it just seemed like a lot of the time, well, I'll just leave it at that. So basically, you know, I think my buddy Masaki pointed out that, you know, this is attributable to the age of Aquarius, and so let's just take a look really briefly at what age of Aquarius might be about. Okay, so the Wikipedia tells you that Aquarius, we're talking about astrology here for people who live under a rock, but no, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be arrogant or anything, but anyway, so Aquarius associated with electricity, computers, flight, democracy, freedom, humanitarianism, idealism, modernization, astrology, nervous disorders, rebellion, nonconformity, philanthropy, veracity, perseverance, humanity, and irresolution. Now, you know, some people, the American Revolution and the Industrial Revolution and the discovery of electricity are also attributed to this. You have some others say time when humanity takes control of Earth and its own destiny and its rightful heritage, with the destiny of humanity being the revelation of truth and expansion of consciousness, blah blah blah. So some people will experience mental enlightenment in advance of others and therefore be recognized as new leaders of the world. So again, there's positive and negative manifestations of the age of Aquarius. We're talking about freedom, talking about flight. It's an air sign, so in tarot, air is associated with the swords. And sometimes a person can be cutting with their words, can be cutting with the air is associated with ideas as well. So, ideas are one thing, but it's good to be grounded as well. But you notice that, as my buddy Masaki pointed out, a lot of the kind of Masaki Miyagawa, a lot of the stuff you see, like the Skype and the instant communication, that is attributable to this. So let me see what else might be good here. Knowledge and science will be abused, not industry and trade. Aquarian age will be a dark age in which religion is considered offensive, and that is kind of what you see at the Burning Man festival, right? So Outtrim pointed out that you can go and say whatever you want at that festival, but if you talk about Jesus or something like that, you'll be like ostracized. You'll be you'll be cast out. Like, people will probably laugh at you and stuff like that. So rise of scientific rationalism combined with the fall of religious influence, the increasing focus on human rights, the exponential growth of technology, plus the advent of space flight and space travel. So, I'm not gonna, I have mixed opinions about Bitcoin. I'm not going to pretend like I can stop this thing right now. That's what I sort of feel about this, is like it's already sort of, and you had people like Elon Musk talking about artificial intelligence and how we sort of pass the point of no return and stuff like that. And artificial intelligence does overlap with Bitcoin quite a bit. So I don't like that I have to use this. I'm just going to say that right off the bat before we get back into information that's actually more interesting right now for me, and hopefully for you. And just real briefly, why not show just a bit of this just to let you know, for those who don't know, what Baphomet looks like. And of course this is pointing up and pointing down. That's the as above so below kind of stuff that you were seeing in that Meshuggah music video. And here, Satanists filed $50 million lawsuit over misused Baphomet statue in Netflix series. Anyway, so later on I might show a clip, if I have time, of one of the Bitcoin gurus, Andreas Antonopoulos, talking about a hypothetical situation in which artificial intelligence would be using Bitcoin. But before that might come later if I have time. But yeah, right now, let's take a look at one more trailer. And that would be from a movie that is all about augmented reality and virtual reality. And that's Ready Player One. Yeah. And, alright, let's have a look-see here. And before we do that, I'm just going to point out some... what am I going to point out here? Let me see... augmented reality and creative control. Did I have Ready Player One in here? Ready Player One. No, I did not, but I believe I have that relevant screenshot on hand. Hold on. Alright, so here is a screenshot from that film, And right here you see Saturn. It's like really prominently in your face. Like it's the biggest piece that this guy seems to have in his room here. You know, as a decoration piece, like it's Saturn right on the wallpaper. And if that's not enough, I think now would be a good time to point out the Gematria, because here's a number 42, which pertains to Saturn, and you know, Gematria is the practice of attributing numbers to letters. So you take a letter and you attribute a number to it, and you use that system to find each letter of a word will have, each letter in a word will pertain to a number. You add all those numbers together and you get a sum. And then what you find is when something resonates with something else, or someone resonates with someone else, you know, they'll have the same numbers. This is kind of like numerology, where you can, based on your name and your date of birth, you can come up with a blueprint of your whole life. With respect to, you know, the forks in the road that you'll get to, your obstacles, your gifts and abilities, things of that nature. You know, a lot of that is reflected in numerology, and what that would point to is that time is sort of a limited sort of thing, that there is sort of a reality outside of time. So anyway, before I get too far into this, if you take a look at the calculator that one of my associates built, Derek Takuri built the world's best Gematrinator Calculator. And if you go there, you'll see what I'm talking about here. You have A is 1, B is 2, C is 3, D is 4, and I have many other examples that I'll, you know, go through in another video. But if you type in Saturn, you get 42, right? And using one of the methods. So I'm not going to go into the details of the difference between these methods. Basically, what's important to know is that there are different. You can attribute different numbers to the letters, and this seems random, right? But when you see enough examples of this thing playing out, you start to wonder what exactly is randomness. Right? You know, a lot of people have these sayings, like they say everything happens for a reason. This poetic stuff. It's not for nothing. They're not just saying it for nothing. And they're not just putting this 42, which means Saturn, in a movie about virtual reality, while also showing, you know, Saturn in that same movie. But anyway, let's take a look at the trailer. And I guess before I show this, I'll just say that's what accounts for a lot of these numbers that you see here in my WebBrain software. Now, if I have time, I'm going to try to sign up with Mediafire or something like Dropbox, because my Dropbox account got full. And I'm going to try to upload the brain zip file of this database to that and leave a link for that either in this video or a future video, so that you can actually read these numbers a little easier, right? So let's say you go to Saturn, you type in Saturn, right? And you see the numbers that Saturn is associated with. So it's not just 42. As I said, there's different methods. Some of the methods, the A will be 6 and it'll go up by 6, and some of the methods there's going to be seemingly no order to the numbers at all. It'll seem kind of random. Other methods, like the Chaldean method, it would omit the number 9 from the cipher, this is called a cipher right here. What you see here is a cipher, and it would just not have the number 9. So there's lots of different methods. There's not that many hard and fast rules to this type of stuff, but it's easy to ignore when you don't look into it. But anyway, so I should say, you know, let's say you want to see what other numbers match 42, right? So let's see. We're talking about artificial intelligence here, and transhumanism. And if you type in, let's say, 88, right? Instead of 42. We'll come back to 42, but if you type in 88 and you press that, you'll find all the other numbers that I have personally attributed to the number, or all the other words that I have attributed to the number 88 by means of this system of Gematria. And one of them is artificial intelligence. Okay, so there's another synchronicity. Now let's say you want to look at 42, right? So these are the numbers that pertain to 42. So, and again, you don't want to view this in black and white. There is number polarity, so sometimes you'll find something like Satan equals 55 and God equals 55 in reverse and stuff like that. You know, these are the types of things that Derek Takuri would point out in his Signs of Time video. But nevertheless, this is very interesting, and so you see all these like nanotechnology, very integral to transhumanism, is on there. Blockchain, okay, that's what we're talking about with the Bitcoin. Bitcoin's infrastructure that is using is blockchain, essentially. Okay, so, and then what you find is another one of the Saturn numbers is 119. Okay, and then you type in 119 and you'll see my website, Potent News. Right? You look at the Potent News website, you'll see the number 47 as well in one of the other ciphers, and you type in 47, and what does that get you? Gets you a lot of stuff, because this is one of the most popular numbers. Also, according to Zachary K. Hubbard, who is another researcher. Derek Takuri goes on his radio show a lot, and I'm just going to say it's very clear that Zachary K. Hubbard has received a lot of backlash for looking into this area. Now, it just so happens that 47 matches my name. So my name is 47. My website is 47. My website's focusing on transhumanism and you know, artificial intelligence, and I would have the black cube, which is associated with artificial intelligence, in the logo of the website. And you know, the black cube is associated with Saturn, and Saturn is associated with 119, which is also on my website. So this is the kind of stuff that I'm trying to make clear for people with this software. And it's funny because right now we're at 47 minutes and 27 seconds into the video that I'm recording here. So it's funny that I'm talking about this 47 stuff right when we're at 47 minutes. I did not plan it out like that, I assure you. I assure you. But anyway, that's the tidbit about Saturn, and we can now view the Ready Player One trailer.
A hidden keep, a leap not taken. Retrace your steps, escape your past, and the key will be yours at last. What part of your past are you trying to escape, Halliday? This is the Oasis. A whole virtual...
Okay, I just gotta pause it for a bit, because that thing where when he tunneled through all that stuff, that is very reminiscent of the DMT experience as well. And there's so many movies that are doing this now as well. So psychedelic culture is playing itself out in a lot of these movies. Right there, right when he's putting on this thing, which is encompassing all of his vision. Right, that's sort of what the DMT experience is like. Is like you're pretty much in your own world when you do that. There's no point in focusing on your immediate surroundings, because you end up seeing stuff like this. Not the rest of that, but just that one little bit there. It's that tunneling through aspect. Anyway, let's continue.
This is the Oasis, a whole virtual universe. You can do anything, be anyone, without going anywhere at all. The Oasis was created by James Halliday, and what he left behind changed everything. A contest. 3 impossible challenges. The first to finish gets complete control of the Oasis, which means complete control of the future.
The contest has got to be about connecting with someone, connecting with the world. So we take it together?
Sure. Save the Oasis.
Save the world.
Players, are you ready?
That's better.
I'll wave to you from the finish line. McFly.
That went well.
All right. So another thing that just came to my mind right now is this was in theaters March 29th. And if you check out the Chaldeans, I mentioned that Chaldean system was the one that ignored the number 9 in their cipher. If you check out that for number 29, what you find is this. It's not a fortunate number for the indication of future events. This number indicates uncertainties, treachery, and deception of others. It foreshadows trials, tribulation, and unexpected dangers, unreliable friends, and grief and deception caused by members of the opposite sex. It gives grave warning if it comes out in anything concerning future events. So, take that for what it is. If you think everything is random, then, that might not mean anything to you, but there you go. Okay, so I mentioned Burning Man earlier, right? I mentioned Burning Man, and so that's why I'm going to show this trailer, or at least some of it, I don't know, well, maybe we'll see all of it, and of a movie with a weird title, How to Talk to Girls at Parties, because part of this movie really reminds me of the weird, crazy stuff that's happening at the Burning Man Festival, and all the strange costumes people are doing, and the strange behavior. So let's check this out. And actually, before we do that, I'm also going to say that not only are a lot of films that are associated with artificial intelligence having the black cube in it in those films, but a lot of them also, if they don't have the black cube, they might have the black goo, which is affiliated with the black cube. And if I know this sounds stupid and crazy and whatever, but if you want to know more about this black goo, you just go to my website, click the black goo tag from the tag cloud down over, down all the way here, just find black goo. Where would it be? Let's see. B. Blockchain black goo. There you go. Right beside the black cube. And if you do that, you will come across Harold Kautzvela talking about this stuff and about supposedly 2 different types of black goo. And this does pertain to Morgellons, which actually I put out a video on the 29th of, I think it was November of 2012, pertaining to Morgellons, and it got a lot of views, and I'm 99% sure or 100% sure that the view counts were screwed with and throttled and so on and so forth. I ended up following the fair use guidelines. However, I was not allowed to have that video be monetized, even though I followed all the fair use guidelines. I didn't put like a full song in there. I didn't, I used a portion of a song here and there, a small portion, and apparently that's not good enough for Google and YouTube. And one thing I'll also say, from my website you can get to the web brain that I'm playing with here over there. It's just a more crude version. The cloud version is more crude. You can't really move around the numbers. The numbers end up sort of overlapping a little bit too much, whereas with the actual software you can move it around like so that you can see a little clearer. But anyway, so here's some, before I show the trailer, I have to show you some screenshots of this movie where here's his hair looking rather like black goo, but then here's actual, this is just some random scene in the movie, if I remember correctly, and it's got this black goo looking thing sort of infecting this cell type of thing, right? And here's another one, this closer shot is like, approaching it. Here is one of the characters who's all blackened like that because he, who knows, and he appears to be infecting the other character like so. So this infection viral thing is very reminiscent of the hive mind, which is emblematic of the negative manifestation of Age of Aquarius. So it's good to be focused on the group, but when you're not grounded, you end up all sort of losing your identity and your individuality in the process. And so this movie features like a cult. So let's check this out.
Let's get laid! Hello.
Welcome.
They must be from California.
It's gonna be alright, just corner the one that looks the loneliest and speak in short sentences.
Hello, my name is N, short for Henry.
I'm Zan.
Now that is punk.
Do more punk to me. What do your people do on an ordinary day?
We do what we want.
Have you no restrictions?
This is unprecedented.
I'm just gonna pause it there. Having no restrictions. So that's pretty much what Satanism is all about. Like wanting to be a rebel and wanting to think you're being free, but sort of shooting yourself in the foot in the process. Hedonism. If you look at this Burning Man thing, they just want to do whatever they want, and in the long run, it's not really helping them.
Look out there! Look out there! That was the future.
And I can come with you to the punk. I have 48 hours.
I never thought I'd make my way. What are you bringing her here for?
I slept at his house and met his mom.
Sorry, love.
It's my first time at this. It's taking longer than I expected. And we engaged in incomplete sexual activity.
Ready to come home, yeah?
She's not normal. None of them are. I bet they participate in some bizarre sex rituals.
No.
How do you know that?
I just don't see it happening.
You have less than 24 hours to rectify the situation.
You're in extreme danger. We have to leave now.
I feel alive. I feel open.
Sam needs hope. We'll need.
I should just say too, like with the pupils dilating and the dilated pupils, I mean that's a symptom of being high on LSD or mushrooms. So And that's the kind of stuff a lot of people are doing at Burning Man. So it's not a coincidence that this is in here as well.
You're in extreme danger. We have to leave now.
I feel alive. I feel open.
Sam needs help.
We'll need backup.
You think you can just swallow us up? Rise up, my children!
We may have cocked this planet up royally, but at least we're alive. We like to eat, we like to dance, we like to fall in love. And we try and fix what our parents screwed up. Are you lot with me?
Alright, so that was some weird, wild stuff right there, wasn't it? Oh man, this is exhausting work sometimes, but it must be done. So let's get back to Pokemon. Alright, let's check out Pokemon Go. And let's see how it ties to the CIA. Alright, so we might touch upon the Quake developers later for that video game. Pokemon Go is a video game. It's from Niantic, which is from John Hanke. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. And he, you know, was head of Keyhole, which had received In-Q-Tel money, which is, and an In-Q-Tel is basically a CIA thing. So right there, you know, it's right on the Wikipedia, so it's not like it's up for debate. But these are apparently, I don't know if all of these have been vetted, but like they say that they've invested in all these companies right here that you see here. Right, so Palantir Technologies is one of them. And we'll get back to Palantir, but I just want to say, when I was looking for, there was one particular In-Q-Tel logo that also had the Saturn symbolism. So anything with a ring, essentially, like even the ring, the wedding ring, right? Saturn, they call it the keeper of time, and it's all about time. In astrology, it's about seriousness, results, life lessons, constriction, contracts, limitations, these kinds of things. And so it's like my buddy Masaki said, like it's different to have a cult that is you know, a cult that is worshiping Saturn would be different than just acknowledging Saturn. So I'm not sure if that's the way he put it, but you know, that's what I remember. And so when I was looking for one of the older In-Q-Tel logos, I mean, this is their current logo, but there was another one that I could not find, which had, it seems to be gone. I tried my hardest to find it, but one of their older logos is gone. So that Saturn symbolism that was in that one, I can't find. However, in looking for that, I found this, which is the, you know, here you have what appear to be black squares. So it's IQT Consulting. That's In-Q-Tel. Okay, here's another one, and this one has the ring. Now this is not the one I was thinking of, but it's the ring's right there. And of course, this is the kind of stuff you see all over the tech world. Like Intel has that ring. Yeah. So what's interesting is we mentioned that Eye of Sauron earlier, that thing from the Lord of the Rings, and it just so happens that well, here first let's get back to Palantir, because Palantir connects to Lord of the Rings. And you look at In-Q-Tel, like I said, they funded Palantir, and that's something that Peter Thiel co-founded. And Palantir apparently comes from, it's a word from, it's named after the seeing stone in Tolkien's, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, Legendarium. So basically that is forms the background of the Lord of the Rings, which brings us back to that Eye of Sauron, which has the Saturn symbolism. And Peter Thiel also, he also funded Ron Paul's campaign. And so you find that a lot with a lot of these people that are into the transhumanism and the tech stuff. A lot of them are either libertarians or anarchists, and the idea behind that is the same idea as we were saying before about the hedonism in the Burning Man and so on. You know, you just I want to do what I want, but as long as I'm not hurting anybody, and you know, it's not always that clear cut. I used to consider myself somewhat of a libertarian or an anarchist, but these days definitely not. And so there's a bunch of other stuff. So In-Q-Tel funded Facebook, right? Or yeah, Facebook was funded by In-Q-Tel, and of course Peter Thiel is an investor in Facebook as well. And actually, before I move off from Peter Thiel, I should say that there was a video from a man named Christopher Green, and I can't find that video now. It seems to have been taken down or censored or something. But he mentioned in that video, when I saw it, that he mentioned that he has insider information indicating that Peter Thiel helped create Prism via Palantir Technologies. And that's supposedly the thing that Edward Snowden exposed, right? So there's an interesting connection. Now also, when you talk about Facebook, you find that Oculus VR, which is where the Oculus Rift comes from, is hold on a second. Okay, so here's the thing. When I was a kid, when I was like, or I shouldn't say the word kid, but child, when I was a child, I played the game Quake a lot. There was a computer game called Quake, and ended up having a big series. And the main guy behind that game and a lot of the games in the series was John Carmack. And he is the CTO of Oculus VR at this moment in time. So Oculus Rift basically is virtual reality. I should tie that actually to maybe I already have it tied to virtual. Yeah, I do. Okay. So that's virtual reality, you know, a lot of applications to that kind of thing. And what's interesting about John Carmack is, again, he's a libertarian, he's an atheist, he's a Leo. That's interesting. You know, they say they like the attention and they live the longest. And he not only did he do the Quake game via his company ID Software, which was also involved in Commander Keen, which is like one of the main, most popular earlier video games ever. I mean, I grew up on this stuff. So not only did he do that, but hold on, lost my train of thought here. Okay, so I can't remember if this is what I wanted to say, but regardless, not only did he do the Quake series from ID Software, but he was also you know, supporting Ron Paul as well. I don't know if it was financial support, but you know, the Wikipedia page says he basically supports him or supported his campaign, and it's not that hard to believe if John Carmack already identifies as a libertarian. Oh, this is what I wanted to say. He also founded Armadillo Aerospace. So this guy's basically a rocket scientist. Okay, so he's not just making video games that end up influencing a lot of people like me, but he was also a rocket scientist, and you can see the blurb on that. You can pause that and read that if you want. Apparently the company went in hibernation mode in 2013. Right now he's again Oculus VR, which is a division of Facebook, right? So In-Q-Tel, Saturn Symbolism and In-Q-Tel, but also the Quake series itself. If you look at the logo for Quake, it also has that ring, and so there's that Saturn ring again, right? So there you have that. And here's like a screenshot from the game. Oh man, this takes me back. It's sad that these are like my childhood memories, like you know, just going around in a first person shooter killing people. So anyway, what can you do? Anyway, so let's go back here and check out more of maybe John Carmack. What else can we say about that? Okay, so ID Software, he also did Wolfenstein 3D, which is also like pretty much a prolific, one of the main seminal video games that ever existed. It kicked off everything. I don't think he was involved in the newer version of that game called Wolfenstein: The New Order. I think the people involved in that are not him. It would be confirmed right here. Programmers, so I don't see John Carmack there, but what's interesting, okay, and by the way, this is Machine Games, right? That's for this particular title, it's Machine Games is what it's under. And what I find interesting is that the person who did the soundtrack for that is Frederick Thorndahl, the guitarist, the main lead guitarist of Meshuggah. Of course, he was influenced heavily by Alan Holdsworth, who was a great jazz guitarist, and I'm very fascinated with jazz. You know, you can also, you know, one of the good jazz players was Wayne Shorter, and he had an album called Schizophrenia, right? And the All-Seeing Eye, right? And he was on Bitches Brew, a good album with Miles Davis. Anyway, so these are weird connections, and you gotta wonder, why is there an International Jazz Day? You know, why is UNESCO like having an International Jazz Day? You know, so one of the people who coined the term transhumanism was the first Director General of UNESCO. You know, so hat tip to Jan Irvin for that, but like, you know, so this Julian Sorrell Huxley, which was Aldous Huxley's brother, actually was promoting geoengineering as well. He promoted melting the ice caps, right? Let's melt the ice caps so we can have easier travel over the North Pole or something like that. It's in a government website. Like, it's not this. It's on a main official government website that this guy proposed this. But whatever. Let's go back. So jazz and Wolfenstein, right? So you have that. Like I said, you have the guitarist of Meshuggah doing the Wolfenstein thing, doing the music for that game. So the other thing interesting about John Carmack is id Software reminds us of the id, ego, and superego, this model of consciousness from Sigmund Freud, the Taurus, who was part of the Pan-Europa conferences. It was his nephew. You know, I'm not going to go too deep into this. Like, there's no point here, but just some interesting little connections there. Like, why id Software? You know, I'm just going to leave it at that for now. Okay, so going back to Quake, right? Through his id Software, he made Quake. And 9 Inch Nails composed the music for Quake. Can you believe that? Trent Reznor and 9 Inch Nails composed the music for Quake. He's affiliated with Marilyn Manson. Marilyn Manson's influenced by a Satanist, Aleister Crowley, who was an MI6 agent. You know, it's not that much of a hop and a skip to see these connections. You got Die Antwoord doing the chaos magic as well, just like I mentioned was happening with Meshuggah having the Chaos Sphere on their album cover. And also, so let's see here. So Trent Reznor, 9 Inch Nails. What is 9 Inch Nails? You know, some people and the Wikipedia says others are rumored explanations have circulated alleging that Reznor chose to reference Jesus' crucifixion with 9-inch spikes. And apparently the English letters NIN are also noted for their resemblance to the modern Hebrew characters of the Tetragrammaton. Okay, so that's a funny, interesting little word, right? So the Tetragrammaton is one of the names of God in Judaism. It's in the Torah, which is separate from the oral Torah, and that's a whole other topic, right? So I'm not going to get into that right now, but basically the idea, you know, Marty Leeds brought it, he talked about this in a podcast, which is that, you know, apparently the oral Torah was, you know, you had the Torah, and then eventually, you know, in the rabbinic tradition, they would say, okay, well, there's some other stuff that God said as well to Moses, I believe it was, which was oral and which was only meant to be passed down orally. So what does that remind you of? Doesn't it remind you of, like, you know, the Animal Farm book? Right, the Animal Farm book, where you have these laws that are put in place, and then they just sort of get changed later on, and they this is prohibited, but actually it's allowed when this is happening, and stuff like that. And this is a book I read in school, like they made us read it in school, right? So that's just one little thing, which is an interesting tidbit. So it's just funny, especially when you find stuff like this part of the Talmud, where, you know, this was brought to my attention from one of the videos that Derek Takuri put out, and apparently in the Baba Kama 113a of the Talmud, it states that, you know, the you-know-whos may use lies or subterfuges to circumvent a Gentile. So basically giving people permission to lie. I mean, and to lie in order to gain an advantage over another group. So does that sound like something that God would say? Like, seriously? Like, other parts of this Talmud will also indicate, they say that you can have sex with a 3-year-old child. So they're basically authorizing rape. So, you know, I don't have that specific reference on hand, but I mean, it's pretty well talked about. I mean, anyone who looks into this area already knows about this. And I believe that the word Meshuggah itself means crazy person or something like that. So here's all the pictures that got deleted when I went from one computer to the other. But let's see here. Yeah, Meshuggah's name means crazy or insane. And I believe that was in Hebrew, if I'm not mistaken. yeah, there you have it. From Hebrew, Mesuga, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. So yeah, I mean, you do see an overall normalization of mental illness. That's the Age of Aquarius stuff. I had a person who was studying psychology mentioned to me, she was studying it at school, and she mentioned that she was seeing a large increase in nervous disorders, and that was what we said. Where was it here? Nervous disorders. That is an attribute of the Age of Aquarius. So let's just go back to Nine Inch Nails for a second. So Nine Inch Nails. Trent Reznor, Marilyn Manson. Right, so you got Marilyn Manson. You got, he was in a music video by D. Antwoord. A music video called Ugly Boy. So you can see that if you have the software here. And this is free. This is the free version of the software. So if you go to thebrain.com, download version 8 is the one I prefer. And eventually I'll put out the brain zip file. You'll be able to do this. But anyway, sorry, I just laughed because I saw that 1014 is D. Antwoord, and that's a whole other can of worms for me. I'm not going to go into 1014 right now, but what I did want to show was that they starred in a movie. The people who compose D. Antwoord, very strange folks, by the way. If you check out their music videos, a lot of it's rather disturbing stuff, and they do use sigils a lot. Don't get me wrong, I make sigils, I use sigils, but I don't put it in a music video and try to influence people with my sigils. I just sort of do it for my own well-being and for my highest good, and so that I can, but for those who don't know what sigils are, it's basically, it has to do with magic, right? So casting spells, that kind of thing. But these people, Watkin, Tudor Jones, and wow, there's a lot of stuff in my web brain that I forgot about. This apparently Aphex Twin. Well, let me read this. When D. Antwoord checked their emails on 2 February this year, among the 5,000 or so messages the group had received overnight was one from Neil Blomkamp, the District 9 director and fellow South African. The subject line read, "Oh my God," and the message, "I effing love you guys." Since then, their fame has traveled further. David Lynch loves their videos so much that he invited them for a round of coffee. David Fincher wanted to cast singer Yolandi as Lisbeth Salander in the Hollywood remake of The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. She turned him down. And 2 weeks ago, they shared a stage with Aphex Twin at the LED. So anyway, Aphex Twin is another band or another artist that I grew up on, heavily influenced a lot of my electronic music. But what I want to focus on now is they starred in Chappie, and Chappie is a transhumanist film glorifying artificial intelligence, and basically I think one of the guys, maybe Watkin, or one of the Watkin is the guy, Yolandi is the female, the girl, and I think he has the Aphex Twin symbol tattooed on his arm as well. I don't know if that was just for the movie or if it's permanently on there. It's probably permanently on there. Anyway, what I want to focus on now is the fact that the I is lowercase in the title for this movie. Now, what does that mean? I mean, I should have tied that to pi earlier, but that basically pertains to pi, right? And it might be too much to go in and flesh that stuff out at this point in time, but pi is a mathematical constant, and again, we had that mathematic production company or whatever do the creative control film we talked about at the start. Well, when you look into these number patterns a lot of the stuff you'll find a lot of pi stuff. Now, pi is the, if you don't know about it, it's the ratio of a circle's diameter to its circumference, or maybe it was radius. I can't believe I'm forgetting that, but let me see here. Yeah, I was correct actually. It was the diameter to the circumference. And if you don't know about this number, you're kind of living under a rock. I mean, people make holidays based off of this number. I'm not going to go into it too deeply, but I'm going to say that there is a film called Pi. I saw this film a long time ago. Zachary K. Hubbard refreshed my memory about this film. Well, not personally, but in a radio show or podcast that he did, talking about how this film is basically set. The setting is a main character is trying to find number patterns in order to make predictions. And then he is followed by rabbis who are hostile towards this information, and by the end of the movie, the guy ends up sort of as Hubbard said, he was trying to figure it out just to make predictions in the stock market. The rabbis were trying to figure out what he knows for other more divination related reasons. I guess predicting the stock market too is divination, but you know what I mean. They associated it more with esoteric stuff and God and so on. And so one of the numbers for God number is 99, by the way. So if you go to God number, find 99, right? Gematria also, let me see here. So some of these, like one of the other God numbers is 144, as Derek Takuri pointed out in one of his videos there with Signs of Time. And he pointed out that 144 gives you 108. And geometry also is 108. Geometry. Okay, so Gematria is the geometry in language. And what I find interesting is judgment is 144. And these are the words of God is 1440. And of course in numerology you ignore the 0 because the 0 is just not really even a number. And if you don't only have 144, you have 1404 right there. So there you have that. But the main issue is that in this film called Pi, which is demonizing anybody who is looking into this study of Gematria, it demonizes because the main character ends up drilling a hole in his head in the end of the movie. And if you look at other movies that are about Gematria, like the number 23, you have Jim Carrey like stabbing his wife, and he's also interested in this kind of number study. But in that film, they don't even give you time to like actually get on the same page with the guy pertaining to his calculations. Like he'll be rambling and saying the numbers so fast that you can't even keep up. So even if it did make sense, you wouldn't know. And he it ends up just looking like, I'm not, like anyone who studies Gematria as a crazy person who would go stab their wife or friggin' drill a hole in their head. And you gotta wonder why are people so hostile to this information? This guy, that the guy who made that film, Pi, also made Mother, which starred Jennifer Lawrence, and he ended up dating her. I don't know if they're still dating, but you know, she's a sort of feminist. She put out a video again. Hold on, let me make this bigger. Yeah, a video against the defunding of Planned Parenthood. So you know, you can. Oh, I put that at the bottom. I should have. There we go. Man, it's getting late. So yeah, Planned Parenthood, Margaret Sanger, birth control, you know, Galton Institute is where Sanger comes from. So this is basically eugenics, and we come back to that guy who coined the term transhumanism, Julian Huxley. He was vice president of the Galton Institute from 1937 to 44, and president from 1959 to 62. Going back to Darren Aronofsky for a second here. Okay, so I'm getting ahead of myself. I got to refer to my notes on paper that I wrote down here, because the movie Chappie had Pi in it, right, in the title, and it's all about artificial intelligence. And what else is about artificial intelligence? Well, this D-wave stuff with this quantum machine learning, right? So let's check that out via the black cube, because this D-wave quantum computer looks exactly like a black cube. And here we go. Oh, do they show it here? No. Here it is. So this is the D-wave computer right here. Okay, so you cannot get more black cube than that, right? So it's interesting. Let's see, why would this have anything to do with artificial intelligence? Well, they're looking at the quantum world. This is quantum computing, and the quantum computing, if you can do computations much faster, you can do quantum machine learning. The Quantum Artificial Intelligence Lab uses one of these D-wave quantum computers via the Ames Research Center, which is a division of NASA, and Google teamed up with them as well, and the University Space Research Association. All these three things were working on this Quantum Artificial Intelligence Lab. Of course, the National Academy of Sciences is the National Academy. There's a lot of different national academies. I only have 2 of them here, but if you look on the Wikipedia, you'll find a lot. So yeah, there's just some weird stuff about this D-wave computer. You know, you have CERN as well associated with this. I think there's a guy from D-wave giving a talk at CERN. So here's CERN's website from their CERN document server, and there is this. I'm going to pause it. I haven't seen this yet, but apparently it's some guy named William Collin, speaker, D-Wave Systems Inc., and copyright CERN. So this is overlap. Obviously, anything that you find in the quantum world is going to be applied to anything that looks at that. So yeah. Oh man, getting a little hungry, but let's see how much further I can go here. So of course, do you have? There is weird statues in front of the CERN facility as well. Of course, you got the Shiva statue, and then one of their like Shiva's the god of destruction supposedly, or something like that, and like a Hindu god. And I should have that here, but I don't have that. And they also put out like a video called Symmetry. And so this quantum stuff, there's so much we could say about this. Like in this video, they have a man's wristwatch moving very fast and then suddenly stopping. So they're talking about, I mean, let me see here. No, I'm not even going to do, it's too much information. There's so much stuff I got to get through. I can't do this. So, but essentially, you know, time travel, parallel universes, all that kind of stuff surrounds all this. And that's what the Mandela effect is. I mean, I'm not going to go into the Mandela effect right now. That would be too much. But if you want to Google Luke, I am your father, Mandela effect, or Houston, we have a problem, Mandela effect, or Berenstein Bears Mandela effect, there'll be a lot to find there. A lot of people, you know, laugh this stuff off, but you know, it's very possible that if you look at the type of language that the people behind CERN are using, and the people behind the D-Wave systems are using, it's some strange stuff. I mean, they're kind of like worshipping this thing, because I mean, here you have Wes Penner wrote a book about this topic in 2016, and he said the presenter, talking about, I think most likely one of the people affiliated with D-Wave, he says, tells his audience that 2 supercomputers are now in place. One is located in the University of Southern California, and the other one is located in British Columbia, Canada. They are called D-Wave, and they look like 2 giant cubes. Entirely new technology being used by NASA. These D-Waves are giant refrigerators, where scientists have managed to decrease the temperature to almost absolute zero. Absolute zero being 0.0 K, negative 273.15 degrees Celsius, or negative 459.67 degrees Fahrenheit. This is, they say, 100 times cooler than interstellar space. And when the guy says when he's standing in the same room as one of these D-Waves, he can hear a very specific sound coming out of the computer, and it sounds like a heartbeat. Like a heartbeat. He compares it to an alien, alternate an alien god. Says that he reveals that these 2 computers, which he says are the only ones of their kind in the world, can tune into parallel universes. He calls them parallel universes to begin with, but later uses other terms for them as well, such as alternate universes, and more interestingly, alternate probabilities. After all, he says parallel universes are alternate probabilities. And I'm not going to go further, but like a heartbeat catches my eye, because we mentioned pi was the ratio of a circle's diameter to its circumference, and that would be roughly 3.14. Now, one of the ways you can get that number is doing, 22 divided by 7. And I believe 22 and 7, these are surrounding the holidays for this pi thing as well, like the 7th month, 22nd day or something like that. And heart equals 227, right? So if you go to Derek DeCourier's calculator and you type in heart and you open up these other ciphers, you find in the satanic cipher it's 227. That tidbit is probably organic, so these are the types of, I could be wrong, but these are the types of synchronicities you find with this stuff. So going back to the Pi film, you have that film, again, made by Darren Aronofsky, who also made Requiem for a Dream, which is 1014. Okay, I'll just say it. 1014 matches my name. And Requiem for a Dream is one of my favorite films. So, you know, this is these are other words that also have the 1014, such as synchronicity, just coined by Carl Jung, and he had a cube that he carved in front of his main tower that he built, and so this cube also looks like a black cube. Let's see if we can pull that up. I mean, it's stone, right? So it's not black, but you know, whatever. Like you have the GameCube as well. The video game console, that one was black sometimes, and other times it was different colors. But this is from the Rockefeller-funded documentary about Jung. He's got this cube in front of his tower. And of course, we're talking about pi, right? And so black cube is 360. Pi is about the circle. It's about the mathematics of the circle. So black, how many degrees are in a circle? It's 360 degrees. So 360 degrees in a circle pertaining to pi. So let's get back to pi. The film. Let's get back to that. And what you find is the music for Requiem for a Dream, that really hit home for me as well at the time. And Clint Mansell did the music for that. And he also did the music for the film called Murder by Numbers. Which would, I have not seen the film, but let me see here. There was a video where Derek Takuri pointed out that the cover of the film Murder by Numbers has the E turned into a 3 and the B turned into an 8. So you have that number wordplay right there in the title. So, you know, so there's that. And of course, murder is 38 in one of the ciphers, and it's 38 or death is 38 and killing is 38 and RIP is 38. I think it was Takuri that pointed that out as well. And so, you know, you had two of the most popular actors and actresses here. Ryan Gosling and Sandra Bullock are in this. But before I get again too off track, Clint Mansell did the Requiem for a Dream music through the Kronos Quartet, and that basically harks back to Kronos, which is again Saturn, that you call chronological order pertaining to things that have to do with time, and Saturn is the keeper of time, and of course here's time being with 144 that we saw earlier. And Cronus is also related to Kronos, and that would also pertain to Saturn. Xenex is archetype of the wise old man in the Jungian archetypes. And the antithetical archetype of that is this pure Eternus, which pertains to Peter Pan syndrome, right? So that's escapism, kind of like, you know, cosplay and zombie walk, and I should put Burning Man in there. Actually, let's put Burning Man in there right now, because like there's it fits the bill. And so yeah, the New Age movement is all about that, and instead of, you know, it's like I said in that podcast about the the Pokemon, which is that, you know, the SJWs, for instance, they're just looking outwards all the time and have no idea how to look inwards, and the people in the New Age movement don't care about holding anyone accountable for their actions and looking outwards at all, and they just want to navel gaze and sort of check out of the game. So either one is pretty imbalanced. You know, cosplay, some weird stuff. Oh man, this pertains to a lot of different things. There's too much to get into here. A lot of information I still have to keep going. I don't even know if I'm going to be able to get it all. It's already 1 hour 44 minutes. I didn't plan it out like that, to say it that way at an hour and 44 minutes into the video. Anyway, so let's see here from my notes. Okay, so going back to the Murder by Numbers film, you see, we're talking about synchronicities here, right? So, what do we have? Requiem for a Dream, Kronos Quartet. You had Clint Mansell doing Murder by Numbers, which just happens to be also a song. I think it was Zachary K. Hubbard who pointed this out, that it was a song by, you know, the Police, which was on an album called Synchronicity. I don't know if he pointed out the name of the album, but I mean, that's relevant to me because Synchronicity is 1014, and I'm really interested in all things that are 1014. The electronic music. I make electronic music. I like extreme music. Like I see how it can be weaponized and stuff like that. I try to keep as many organic elements in the electronic music, and you know, I play guitar and stuff. So hopefully one day I'll get more of a, you know, acoustic or a classical guitar, get back to that organic sound a bit. Maybe mix that with this, but it's just funny that like 1014 is synchronicity, and we're talking about synchronicity, and yeah, there's a lot more. I could even tie this in with the Young stuff, and there's too much to get into. But anyway, so Sting was part of the Police, and he's just he is also an honorary board member of the David Suzuki Foundation, or was at one point, at the very least. And of course, you know, David Suzuki is citing the IPCC with respect to climate change. And of course, if you just have to look at, you know, ClimateGate 1, ClimateGate 2, these emails that were found to prove that the scientists were talking about these IPCC scientists were talking about fraudulating the data, making like not real data. So this has already been a scandal. It's already, you know, this whole thing about the climate change controversy. It's sad that people would just parrot David Suzuki, who is just parroting the UN's body about this. This guy won a Nobel Peace Prize. Who? The IPCC won a Nobel Peace Prize, I think. Oh, anyway. Sounds stupid, but I remember checking that out before, so it's been a while since I looked at this part of the web brain. But yeah, the first World Climate Conference included the IPCC. You know, the world, that was connected to the World Meteorological Organization. And, oh no, I was thinking of something else. Anyway, let's go back. Okay, so also one of the, going back to the synchronicity and Carl Jung, I believe it was, I saw a recent interview that Steve Outtrim did with David Livingstone, and I believe Livingstone mentioned that Carl Gustav Jung was secretly Shabbat, or was Shabbat. So there's that. So I have not confirmed that about Jung, but that's worth mentioning. Excuse me, that was a burp. And going back to Clint Mansell, Requiem for a Dream. That starred Jared Leto, or he was one of the stars, and he is a Capricorn. And he starred in Fight Club, and Fight Club. I believe David Livingstone and Steve Outtrim did some good work tying Discordianism to Fight Club. So the Fight Club movie was based off of the Fight Club novel by Chuck Palahniuk, who was part of the Cacophony Society, which was included. Hold on a second. Which was affiliated with the Church of the Subgenius, which came out of Discordianism. So this is this prankster type stuff, these meme wars. This is the kind of thing that this is the kind of thing that Livingstone would maintain that got would say contributed to Trump's being elected. And not only that, but a lot of the people from this Church of the Subgenius were involved with Burning Man as well. Cacophony Society. Chuck Palahniuk was a member of that, as I might have just mentioned that. And so the other thing is, so Fight Club, right? You had Fight Club, and that was a film starring not only Jared Leto and Meat Loaf, who's apparently a Libra, Edward Norton, Leo, and Helena Bonham Carter. I believe that is the Gemini symbol, if I'm not mistaken. Oh, I can't believe I'm forgetting that. Let's confirm here. Let's confirm. Oh, not from there. Oh, right over here. Gemini symbol. Yes. Anyway, that's not what I want to focus on here. What I want to focus on, Brad Pitt, right? Brad Pitt married another Gemini. He's a fire sign. He's Sagittarius. Angelina Jolie is an air sign. Jennifer Aniston, who is Brad Pitt's ex-wife, also is an air sign, Aquarius. Now, he starred in Seven. This is what I find interesting. Remember that wordplay, the number wordplay stuff we saw before? Why would you make a movie where it's called Seven, but you actually write down the actual number 7 right in the middle of it, right? So you find that if you do that, you find 147. So what's 147? .147 is like a lot of this magic type of stuff, right? It's the tarot, which I'm into. It's the numerology. It's Gematria. It's Freemason, which is, I'm not a Freemason. I'm just saying I'm just saying that these people are looking into this area and using this type of magic against the population. Burning Man, even Burning Man is 147. Okay, Deep Dream, which we might get into later, is 147. Gematria is 147. Right? The Gematria effect, which is Zachary K. Hubbard's show, and his name is also 227, so pi is in his name as well. but his show is 147, right? So it's just funny. The Fight Club, the guy who starred in it, Brad Pitt, we also starred in 7, and they got this 7, and it's like, why would they put the number there? Maybe they already knew that if they did put the number there, it would result in 147, right? So let's go back to the calculator here. Seven, right? So that gets you. Oh, I didn't spell it correctly. 7. There we go. In the Jewish cipher. There you have it. S is 90, E is 5, 7 is 7, E is 5, N is 40. Add them all together, you get 147. And of course, like on top of that, 7 itself gives you 420, which is 42, which is Saturn. But then also, Marty Leeds pointed out in a video that 7 equals 22. So if you write out 7 in English words and you use the septenary cipher, it calculates to 22. Of course, pi is approximately 22 divided by 7, or 3.14, as we said before. So a lot of stuff here to this numbers. A lot of interesting things you can find. A lot of interesting things. So, we mentioned, of course, Discordianism being, and the cacophony and all that being, tied to Burning Man more or less. And so what's interesting about Burning Man is the guy who made Second Life, which I don't know if people have heard of this, but it's something similar to augmented reality, virtual reality. It's a way to sort of just live in a virtual world. I mean, people buy property in this virtual world and stuff like that. It's vast, and it allows you to ignore the world around you in a hedonistic fashion. So the person who created Second Life, he said his attendance at the popular music and arts festival Burning Man was what resurrected. Hold on. Okay. While at Real Networks, Rosdale's ambition to create a virtual world was resurrected and recharged by technological advances in computing and his attendance at the popular music and arts festival Burning Man. So Second Life seems oddly similar to Society, quote-unquote Society, a type of real-life Facebook, so to speak, used by characters in the transhumanist Hollywood film Gamer from 2009. So in this film, Society involved people literally controlling other humans or avatars like puppets in a virtual world, quote-unquote virtual, one that's not so virtual. So there's similarities between Burning Man and Gamer Society. They're both hedonistic playgrounds for mindless drones who have lost all attachment to the real world or themselves. I don't want to say drones like that. Like I don't even like to say sheep. Okay, so I'm not perfect. I'm trying. But let's see while we're at it, let's see the crazy stuff in that film. In that Gamer film here. Let's see if the trailer's still up. Oh, no, it was removed because of nudity. Yeah, just like the kind of nudity you would see at Burning Man. Alright guys, I think I'm gonna take that as a sign. Also, the 24-hour Global Consciousness Project DOT is getting a little heated here, so I'm gonna swallow my pride, and since I got my moon in Leo in my natal chart, and I'm going to call it a day for this one, and I'm going to have to take the other stuff that I was going to talk about into a part 2 to talk about a bit more Gematria tidbits, a tiny bit more of the overlap, hopefully, between the psychedelic and tech world, also focusing more on AI, and more of the a little bit of the transhumanist politics, looking at the transhumanist Bill of Rights a bit, and maybe touching upon blockchain a little more. That'll have to be for the next video. And if you did enjoy this presentation, please do not hesitate to go to my to send me some money via PayPal or blockchain or Bitcoin rather. And so you can do that. I will put the links for that in the show notes, as well as a bunch of other related links. And again, you can check out the Potent News web brain from the top menu at the banner here at potentnews.com. And you can also click donate at the top, or you can scroll down and you can click on the donate button for PayPal, and here's a QR code for the Bitcoin donation. Just make sure it says these digits when you scan it, just to confirm. Or if you click donate, if you want to scan it right now, I can expand that for you right here. There you go. At this point in time, any donations would be greatly appreciated. So thank you so much for being patient with me and hearing my strained voice, which is avoiding food, so I can desperately try to finish this video. But like I said, I'm gonna have to swallow my pride. I think my horoscope said to not overdo it today, and I think I already sort of overdid it a little bit. Look forward to seeing you next time, and thank you for checking out Potent News. I'm Amir Alwani. Goodbye.